When Chris Stevens was killed in Benghazi, Libya, on the anniversary of September 11th last year, it was only the 6th time that the United States had lost an ambassador to its enemies. The events of that night have been overshadowed by misinformation, confusion, and intense partisanship. But for those who lived through it, there's nothing confusing about what happened, and they share a sense of profound frustration because they say they saw it coming. Tonight, you'll hear for the first time from a security officer who witnessed the attack. He calls himself Morgan Jones, a pseudonym he's using for his own safety. A former British soldier, he's been helping to keep US diplomats and military leaders safe for the last decade. On a night he describes as sheer hell, Morgan Jones snuck into a Benghazi hospital that was under the control of Al-Qaeda terrorists, desperate to find out if one of his close friends from the US Special Mission was the American he had been told was there.
I was dreading seeing who it was, you know. It didn't take long to get to the room, and I could see in through the glass. And I didn't even have to go into the room to see who it was. I knew who it was immediately.
Who was it?
It was the ambassador. He was dead. Yeah, shocking.
Morgan Jones said he'd never felt so angry in his life. Only hours earlier, Ambassador Chris Stevens had sought him out, concerned about the security at the US Special Mission compound, where Morgan was in charge of the Libyan Guard Force. Now the ambassador was dead, and the US compound was engulfed in flames and overrun by dozens of heavily armed fighters. Although the attack began here, the more organized assault unfolded about a mile across the city at a top-secret CIA facility known as the Annex. It lasted more than 7 hours and took 4 American lives.
We do not have any indication at this point of premeditation or pre-planned attacks, but it is
contrary to the White House's public statements, which was still being made a full week later. It's now well established that the Americans were attacked by Al-Qaeda in a well-planned assault. 5 months before that night, Morgan Jones first arrived in Benghazi, in eastern Libya, about 400 miles from the capital, Tripoli. He thought this would be an easy assignment compared to Afghanistan and Iraq, but on his first drive through Benghazi, he noticed the black flags of Al-Qaeda flying openly in the streets, and he grew concerned about the guard force as soon as he pulled up to the US compound.
There was nobody there that we could see, and then we realized they were all inside drinking tea, laughing and joking. Then
what did you think?
Instantly I thought we're going to have to get rid of all these guys.
Morgan Jones's job was training the unarmed guards who manned the compound's gates. A second Libyan force, an armed militia hired by the State Department, was supposed to defend the compound in the event of an attack. Morgan had nothing to do with the militia, but they worried him so much he could not keep quiet.
Because I was saying, these guys are no good, you need to get them out of here.
You also kept saying, if this place is attacked, these guys are not going to stand and fight.
Yeah, I used to say it all the time. In the end, I got quite bored of hearing my own voice saying it.
We have one option: leave Benghazi or you will be killed.
Green Beret commander, Lieutenant Colonel Andy Wood, was one of the top American security officials in Libya. Based in Tripoli, he met with Ambassador Stevens every day. The last time he went to Benghazi was in June, just 3 months before the attack. While he was there, Al-Qaeda tried to assassinate the British ambassador. Wood says to him it came as no surprise because Al-Qaeda, using a familiar tactic, had stated their intent in an online posting, saying they would attack the Red Cross, the British, and then the Americans in Benghazi. And you watched as they attacked the Red Cross and the British mission, and the only ones left
were us. They made good on 2 out of the 3 promises. It was a matter of time till they captured the 3rd one.
And Washington was aware of that?
They knew we monitored it. We included that in our reports to both State Department and DOD.
Andy Wood told us he raised his concerns directly with Ambassador Stevens 3 months before the U.S. compound was overrun.
I made it known in a country team meeting, you are going to get attacked. You are going to get attacked in Benghazi. It's going to happen. You need to change your security profile.
Shut down the special mission.
Shut down operations. Move out temporarily or change locations within the city. Do something to break up the profile because you're being targeted. They're watching you. The attack cycle is such that they're in their final planning stages.
Wait a minute. You said they're in the final planning stages of an attack on the American mission in Benghazi.
It was apparent to me that that was the case. Reading all these other attacks that were occurring, I could see what they were staging up to. It was obvious.
We have learned the U.S. already knew that this man, senior al-Qaeda leader Abu Anas al-Libi, was in Libya, tasked by the head of al-Qaeda to establish a clandestine terrorist network inside the country. Al-Libi was already wanted for his role in bombing 2 U.S. embassies in Africa.
It was a frightening piece of information.
Because it meant what?
It raised the stakes, changed the game.
Greg Hicks, who testified before Congress earlier this year, was Ambassador Stevens' deputy, based in Tripoli. A 22-year veteran of the Foreign Service with an impeccable reputation. And in that environment, you were asking for more security assets and you were not getting them.
That's right.
Did you fight that?
I was in the process of trying to frame a third request, but it was not allowed to go forward.
So why didn't you get the help that you needed and that you asked for?
I really don't know. I, in fact, would like to know the answer to that question.
In the months prior to the attack, Ambassador Stevens approved a series of detailed cables to Washington, specifically mentioning, among other things, the al-Qaeda flag has been spotted several times, flying over government buildings. When the attack began on the evening of September 11th, Ambassador Stevens immediately called Greg Hicks, who was back in Tripoli.
Ambassador said that the consulate's under attack, and then the line cut.
Do you remember the sound of his voice?
Oh, yeah. It's indelibly imprinted on my mind.
How did he sound?
He sounded frightened.